Hello everybody, welcome to Nature's People. Thank you for tuning in. Today I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is why is the US since the 1900s been sucking or draining wealth from all these other nations, making itself more affluent at a perpetual level. For those of you who never watch my videos, I will probably leave a video here on the description below that talks about why is the US perpetually growing or growing in a non-stop pace. The US since the 1900s up until the Second World War was having a staggering rate of growth, and past that till today's date, the US has been growing at an average, a bare minimum average of 2.4% per year. That is a very, very impressive growth rate as far as metrics are concerned. One of the reasons that is because generally when countries have a tendency of getting wealthier, the rate of growth sort of reduces, and it reduces to a level at which it plateaus, and it doesn't have that much sources to draw in new infrastructure projects, new technologies. It's just about maintenance. So most of the growth is sort of carved, and one of the other factors that also has a tendency of reducing or lowering the growth of developed countries is that as wealthier the country gets, the fertility rate tends to decline, and with that comes a lower population, and a lower population also means less growth, less workforce and whatnot. So now getting deeper in what I mean in general is well, the US is a country that has a really interesting story. I'm not going I won't get dive into it. I won't dive deep into it, but I'll just sort of give a brief overview for those of you guys who are not US citizens or maybe are not relatable to the history of the US. However, okay, let's get down into it. The British built these 13 colonies and were not profitable. And after a certain period of time, there's a discovery of tobacco, and that brought in more workforce, and tobacco was being exported to Europe. And after that, there was a source of income on getting things going. So there was actually profitable colonies. The US got independent after that, and then migrants started coming in from Europe. There have been migrants from Africa also, West Africa in particular. So now, one of the interesting things is that the more immigrants came in to the US, it got wealthier. However, there was a tendency of several presidents that were in power, Frank Roosevelt, John Lincoln. They had expandatory projections or perspectives. So the US took over more land. They bought Louisiana from France. They actually stole, quote unquote, Texas from, they took it from Mexico and also California and all these western states. Now, this tendency brought wars, that were triggered by the quest or the desire for new territory, for resources and what you guys name it. And with that came a sort of reflection on how the US had to deal with all these other nations, and as that kept on happening, there was a sort of trial and error method for the US to understand how could it establish itself and survive as the most powerful and most affluent nation in the world, as these other nations had been growing at a relentless pace. Europe after the Second World War was growing, Japan, Asia, Brazil, India, have all these powerful nations as far as population goes, innovation, productivity goes. The US has to solidify this, position it has gotten at a very high cost. The cost is to sort of manipulate the world system and create a very intricate and very strong and unquestionable dependence of the world in the US. One of the things that I admire the most about the US is that the US has these interactions with the world in general, and it brings out results that are more long-lasting and more positive for its nation. All right, I'll give you an example. After the fall of Japan in 1945, the US saw Japan as a very, very productive and a very innovative nation that could bring results for its growth. So the US, through the Marshall Plan, rebuilt Japan. And so it was for Europe. And guess what? These nations were really productive. Look at the Toyotas, look at the Toshibas, look at the electronic sector that has really ballooned into the world. However, where are these nations now? They are literally falling because since the 90s, these nations has not been growing. They're stagnant. And interestingly, it goes the same with China. I mean, the US really worked onto putting China into WTO, World Trade Organization, and China was introduced. They tried all these measures of having free trade zones. They were included in the free trade zones, and the economy ballooned, it exploded. And after its explosion, now you see China is starting to struggle. The economy is declining. It's not literally declining, but the growth rate is slightly higher and the population is sort of plateauing. So that gives you an example of how the US is constantly scanning for opportunities to drain in wealth. Well, one of the presidents, the former president, Donald Trump, he brought in this perspective wherein he was saying that actually China was looting the US economy because all these manufacturing sectors had been outsourced to China, and manufacturing of iPhones, shipbuilding, and all these industries had been there and taking off jobs from Americans. However, the profit, guys, imagine the share of trade between the US and China was so strong. Just to give you a perspective, the US had 20% of the trade it was doing just with China. Imagine an economy that has imports $3 trillion per year. So the US imports so much to its economy as far as products goes or goods, that it's equivalent to an economy of India. India is literally $3 trillion in economy. Such a huge economy the US is bringing it in. So the strategies of the US really had been after the 1970s to decouple the dollar from the reference of gold. So gold wouldn't be measured by gold standards. So it was free. So now people would be depending on the US dollar specifically on the basis of the American economy's security. And in further videos, because I'll bring better videos with images, me seeing myself, guys, don't worry, you'll see my face. So here is the interesting thing. Looking at all these economies like Japan and Germany, France, these economies have been growing and falling at a sort of erratic and exponential rate. However, if you look at the American economy, it's just steadily, continuously, and cruising upwards with no fluctuations. We know that is that's a red flag. That's a red flag. There seems there's a lot of strategy involved there. If something happens, the US just goes and drags all this wealth. And considering the military complex of having all these military bases all around the world, to actually secure the US has the positioned and only dominant power in the world, period. Just look at what happened in Niger a couple of weeks ago, and the bases are just nearby. So just an interesting thing. First was Japan, explored, they took the wealth. Germany, Europe, all that took the wealth. They haven't grown, these countries, but the US is still growing. Interesting. All right, thank you guys for watching. I'm positive, I'm really confident that my videos will get better. Many of my previous videos weren't that much good, but these ones are better. So thank you for watching, thank you for tuning in. Please share, like, and subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye.